We will call to order the Lincoln City Council regular meeting. Today is Thursday, November 6th, 2025. And if we could have Pastor Nelson from East Lutheran Church.
This is a reading from Psalm 17. I call upon you. Will you answer me, O God? Incline your ear to hear me. Hear my words. Wondrously show your steadfast love, O Savior of those who seek your refuge. From their adversaries at your right hand. Guard me as the apple of your eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. Let's pray. Lord God, you are the master of the universe and the creator of all that has been, is, and will be. We thank you, God, for taking the time to listen to our supplications. We thank you for hearing our prayers. We thank you for answering us. And we pray, oh God, that you would be amongst this gathering here this evening to guide us in all the discussion, deliberations, and decisions that are made here this evening. We pray that in your providence, you would secure a place in this city for your love. We pray that you'll be with all the citizens of this great town of Lincoln, and that you'll guide them in all that they think, say, and do. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And we get stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Auditor, you will call please.
Councilwoman Fabia,
Here.
Councilwoman Davis,
Here.
Councilman Johnston.
Here.
I'm not sure if Councilman Shoemaker.
He said he would not.
And Mayor Berman.
Here. First on the agenda, we have the agenda approval. I would like to move to amend the agenda to add the Lincoln resolution for Burleigh County Emergency Management and the 2025 Burleigh County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan as agenda item 15 and to renumber accordingly.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
First by Councilwoman Davis, for a second.
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Bjornstead. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion? So moved. Next, under the consent agenda, we have the October 23rd, 2025 meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda of October 23-25 meeting minutes.
Yeah, first, is there a second? I'll second the motion. Second by Councilwoman Artavia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And so moved. Now we come to the public comment period. Were there any submissions to the auditor's office? Seeing none, we'll first call for public comment. Second call for public comment. Third and final call for public comment. Seeing none, we will move on to item number 7, the City of Lincoln project updates.
Good evening, council members. This evening, I'd like to update you on a few of our projects we have going on. The rate study has been submitted. There are we submitted the data to Waterworth. I don't know why I can't spit that out, excuse me. But we submitted the information to Waterworth to help get that system up and running. There's also opportunity to comment and look at the rate study. Those drafts have been shared, I believe. I know I included them in your packet. So if anybody has questions, even outside this meeting, please reach out. We're happy to work through those with you. As we talked before, we want to collaborate with the city on these. And if there's clarifications that need happen, we're happy to do that. And next steps would be just to finish that up and happy to share that information with Waterworth. It's exciting to see how those are working together in the community and rates as a total. The next item to discuss is payment management program. That has been shared. That information has been shared with Director Shu, and we will be working ahead on any comments that he might have with that. Matt's really taking that up, those discussions, and so I just wanted to clarify on my memo that I shared with you that the city would present findings and budget scenarios. I just want to make it clear that that's not something SEH is doing. The intent would be for myself as the city engineer, public works director, and staff to get together and use that information to produce other data and models that we can share with you when we're talking about budgets and project scenarios. Just to clarify that, so you're not expecting SEH to come and give a presentation on that. It'll be us as staff moving forward to share that information along with project data. Likely projects will be coming in the next week or two to start building that capital improvement project. We have shared a few projects that we included in the flex funding. So those are something that's being included and looked at as we move forward. The final project bringing in front of you is the wastewater project update. Background on that is that the city council has directed Apex Engineering Group to move forward with the design of the facility. Apex is currently working, and I believe has probably worked its way through by this point on that contract review and working on the scoping documents for that. Next steps are just to continue to work forward, and Carla Wilson from Apex is in the audience. So if you do have any questions, she's happy to come up and answer those for you. If you have any questions for me on either the first two items or Carla for the wastewater project?
I don't at the moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta.
Okay, Attorney Rodney, we have the data center moratorium.
I have one question there. How does the council want to handle the Apex contract? I know it's not listed as a specific agenda item.
Would that be under your report?
It certainly could be. I know that they're here. I wonder if maybe we can move it up and do it now and
That way
get
you
that
could-
done.
Okay, sure.
So if that's acceptable.
Yeah.
So at the last meeting on the 23rd, the council had in front of it the Apex task order and the Apex task order agreement. Council voted to move forward with Apex with this wastewater project and tasked the city attorney to go through those contract documents and work with Apex to try to identify anything that I thought that needed to be modified, and then to send all of you an email with the documents and the red line versions. So my review indicated a few minor changes to clarify, some terms that I would consider to be non-controversial, and those were accepted by Apex. From the bigger issues that we look for the city, the initial contract included some language which would have required the city to indemnify Apex under certain circumstances. And as we've discussed, I always ask for those to be removed because typically you want to have insurance that will pay in the event that the city has to indemnify anybody else. We don't know for certain whether Ender would provide coverage under those circumstances, and Ender would prefer that we not create those burdens. And the alternative, if you don't have the insurance, then the city's got to come up with the money to satisfy that contractual obligation. So Apex was agreeable to removing those indemnification provisions. And then the final kind of issue that comes up in these contracts that we previously discussed is limitations of liability. So the engineers often want to have in the agreement a limitation of what their liability may be to the city in the event that there's negligence or some kind of misconduct or something else happens. The Attorney General's contracting manual starts off with the point that state agencies and cities are a little different, should avoid limitations of liability. But it's much more often that cities will agree to some limitations of liability. So then the question is, what's the kind of the compromise point between what's suggested and what the city will accept? So initially, how the Apex agreement was drafted is that Apex is carrying $5 million worth of professional negligence insurance, and then they have an umbrella policy that boosts all the rest of their insurance to the $5 million mark. How that limitation initially was written was that the city would agree that Apex's total liability would be limited to whatever their insurance proceeds would be, which presumably would be $5 million, but only if whatever the claim was covered by the insurance. So we renegotiated that term, kept in the $5 million cap, but it's a $5 million cap. It's not tied to whether or not there's insurance coverage. There's reasons for that. Some acts of liability are not covered by insurance: gross negligence, fraud, intentional misconduct. On the flip side of that, without liability insurance, the city's ability to actually collect on that damage might be limited. But at this point, from my perspective, the $5 million insurance and the way that the revised limitation of liability is drafted, I'm satisfied with that. So from my standpoint on the legal risks that we've talked about previously, I'm comfortable moving forward with the Apex contract. My only question is whether the city has any concerns about, any of the scope of the project, that, information in the contract, which isn't really a legal function. It's more of an engineering or public works function. And I, so I can't comment on that. But from my standpoint, if the city's satisfied with, the modifications, particularly the limitation of liability provision, then we can remove those red lines, and the contract would be subject to a motion for approval, and the mayor and the auditor could sign it.
Okay, and the task order came through. Everybody had an opportunity to take a look at it. I don't know if you'd like to say anything with regards to what was updated in that task order that you sent out.
Sure. Can you hear me? Or I can off.
Just so the people in the audience.
Sure, yes. Nothing was altered or changed from the original. We just added additional details. City engineer gave us some comments, and we incorporated those to our original scope, just expanded it and gave more detail. So I think everything has been incorporated. Let me know if there's any other things that you'd like updated.
The only question I have for you, and for Apex, so for design purposes and then data of that, does Public Works get a copy of that on the record? Or is that City of Lincoln? Does both? How does that work?
So you mean the final design document?
Yeah.
Yes, the city would get a copy of that, our final design documents electronically and paper copies. Yes.
And you might recall that in some of these prior reviews, there was a question of who would own the instruments of service, and the way the contract came, the city owns all of the plans and designs that are under the contract. There works for hire, where the city owns all of that. And there's an appropriate limitation of Apex's potential liability, depending on what the city does with the material that it gets, but the contract does have the city owning all of that work.
Perfect. Just in case if the city or public works would need it, that we have access to that, and we don't have to hound you for that.
Yeah, no, and that's an important part, you know, the city staff need to know where your infrastructure is for locates and, you know, just moving forward, maintenance and repairs, so certainly.
That was the only thing I had.
And it's my understanding that you met with the Public Works Director and the proper employee that was in wastewater.
So you guys recently, so. Yes,
All right, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
And so what would be the wishes of council?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Apex contract.
We have a first by Councilwoman Davis,
I'll second.
second by Councilman Bjornstam. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any discussion? And it's moved. If we could get the roll call for that, please.
Artavia,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Aaronson,
Yes.
Okay, and then as far as the task order,
Joe, was the question?
oh, the task order,
Yeah,
because that's a separate document, so.
oh, okay, yep, that's probably the best. You're right, that's probably the better way to do it. I was thinking of doing it at one, but you're right, we should do it in two sections.
Make a motion to approve the task order through Apex.
We have a first by Councilwoman Davis,
I'll second the motion.
second by Councilwoman Hartavia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any further discussion? And so moved. If we could get the roll call for that also.
Aaronson,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
and Artavia.
Yes.
All right, and thank you. And then we'll sign.
Yeah, we'll have to produce clean copies where the headlines are removed, and both the mayor and the auditor will sign. So.
All right, well, sounds great.
Thank you, Apex.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
See you.
Now we'll move on to the moratorium.
You get that in front of me. So I think there were a couple of different packets of information that included a moratorium before the council, and I wanted to take a look at whether or not as a home rule city, the council had the ability to adopt a moratorium, and the conclusion that Gavin and I came up with is you could. So this is a modification of, I believe, Burley County's moratorium. We included a definition of data center from Apple Creek Township's moratorium. And so it's not a ordinance, it's simply a resolution that we leaves in place a pause in any development of data centers until the city's zoning infrastructure can catch up.
So what do the wishes of council?
Make a motion to approve the resolution number 2025 or the resolution to oppose the moratorium. Moratorium, I said that wrong.
Moratorium, moratorium.
Typo on there.
Well, okay. I'm reading what's in front of me.
That is not a word that I recognize. We will get a clean copy of that to you.
I will second the
Apologize for
motion.
that.
Okay, we have the first by Councilwoman Davis, a second by Councilwoman Artavia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And so moved. If we could get a roll call on that also, please.
Aaronson,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Artavia.
Yes. I thought I said the name right. The first time. I looked down, I'm like,
All right, item number 9, Turkey Meadows annexation petition ordinance.
I'm so, um. This came on for a public hearing for the annexation. And you recall that all of the notices had been properly given. I thought there was some confusion. The way that I would have preferred is that it was a petition from the landowner. We worked with the landowner today. I do have a signed petition. It came as, I think, screenshots with a phone, so I haven't, I want to get the clean copy. But I'm satisfied that we have a valid, application from the owner, with a legal description, and then you should have in front of you a resolution, annexing the property, into the city. And I believe everything has been completed as far as the notices, the public hearing. Loretta and I spent some time today with the applicant, and I spent some time with the recorder and the county auditor trying to figure out just the sequence of which property description we use, because this land is subject to a plat that the council has approved. And in talking with the auditor and the county recorder, I believe we are using the right description, which is the legal description that is in place now, and that these can be recorded, and then the plat will be recorded after these are recorded. If there's some change, I will come back and we'll figure out how to get the forms in kind of the right sequence, but I believe this is correct and it's ready to be approved.
Perfect. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution number 2025 to annexing Turkey Meadows into Lincoln.
We have a first by Councilwoman Davis,
I'll second.
second by Councilman Branstad. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? If we could get the roll call, please.
Artavia,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Armstead,
Yes.
Right.
Mayor, should we table number 10 since Shoemaker is not here tonight? Can we put that on old business for the next meeting? Auditor, please.
All right, and just as a minor update to that, Councilman Shoemaker did send a request for information to city. The individual that he's been working with did receive that information, so I feel that's speeding regarding that, so. Item number 11, the rodent control, that is mine. That came out because I received a request from a city or a citizen, thank you. And regarding all of the moles or gophers throughout the city. And so when I brought this to the last council meeting, and it was reminded, we don't as a city have jurisdiction over going into somebody's yard and taking care of that. So what I did is followed what this park or the whole metropolitan area uses, and that's just putting it part of their beautification that we're going to limit the things that might encourage the rodents to like having tires in the yard, or giving them a place to breed or live. So what I did is I just figured we could take that part of the residential property standards, and I just put in a separate section as far as maintenance required that they're gonna 1, 2, and 3 sections to those. So the first would be property movements requirements. And this would be in section 5, subsection 9, that all premises shall be kept clean and free of materials, debris, or conditions that may provide harborage or food for the rodents, refuge, garbage, recyclables stored in rodent-proof containers. Well, we already have a garbage ordinance, so that's not gonna be anything different. But this is just aligning things that maybe people might not think about. You know, storage materials such as lumber, firewood, boxes, tires, neatly stacked. Vegetation, weeds, grass. And you know, if the city through its designated official or inspector may inspect any property suspected of rodent infestation. If conditions are conducive to rodent infestations, there could be a notice of violation. And anyway, so the grand scheme is that it's just something that I took on, so we wouldn't have necessarily an ordinance for rodent. But it would still be addressed. The proposed ordinance. Your thoughts on that, or? I don't know that it does anything one way or the other, other than just outlining for people to read and say, okay, this might be something that we as homeowners can do in our yards to not ask.
I would say I'm definitely in favor of the city having a policy for how it maintains that on city property. When it comes to an ordinance for the residents, I would. There's this. I am not against an ordinance. Listing basically rodents as a nuisance, and having an ordinance stating that if that has to be managed like a noxious weed or anything like that does. I would probably be cautious to go into too much detail on that ordinance as to how people prevent rodents from becoming a nuisance on their property. I think I would probably be more in favor of just having an ordinance stating that if, you know, rodents to become a nuisance, that has to be dealt with. But yeah, like I said, I don't know if I'd really be in favor of something saying like how things need to be stored in specific containers, stuff like that. I think that might be going into a little too much detail for what the city needs to manage.
Right, and this would all come to council for y'all to take a look
Sure.
at. I had more just thought it not to be its own policy. So we would take that out of the mix and
okay.
remove that from the
And just
agenda
or
and address it
in place of,
in the new ordinance, right?
I see what you're saying.
So for the exact verbiage, like I said, I took from the other municipalities around as far as what their verbiage is and removing all of it, or just an assets. Drop that when we get to our review of some of these. So if it's okay with council, I'll just ask this to be removed from the agenda for future agendas and just incorporate it. If we are going to address the rodent control, then to just have that part of our beautification or residential.
Yeah, I would agree that it fits in that. Sure, Mayor. Do we have anything to for like new builds or builders or lots that are not being built on but have storage, like, do you know what I'm saying? We have some lots, right, that builders own, right, or that are not developed yet. That's what I'm looking for. There you go. Yeah, you were coming up with the right words that I need. We have some vacant lots, right, that are occupied by owners that are not being developed yet, right? Is that included then too?
This is
In here?
specific to residential properties, but I believe that is addressed in other
Other areas of
ordinances as far as the responsibilities of developers and builders, correct?
Cause I know, to me, it seems right that those areas could be way more festive for rodents, right, as building materials are just sitting there. So, yeah, I don't know, is that something that we would want to incorporate into this, or just leave it alone since it's already somewhere else?
I feel like it's already covered with it, like.
Right.
Any details you put into this or any that's already down, most I feel could easily cover those who get lost, to make sure that. Things aren't left untouched or that.
There are still standards that apply
Yeah.
to.
There are, right, okay, makes sense. Thank you.
So I agree with that. All right, then. Councilman Winstead, you have the employees take home vehicle.
Yeah, did I have a chance to kind of look these over a little bit? You might have any questions or concerns regarding them?
Are we at all considering the possibility of like a radius amount for the take home vehicles?
I believe that was addressed question. A lot of it was, I think I remember it, I think it was listed as being like within a typical 60-minute drive. Basically, just so people aren't taking city vehicles out on long weekend cruises or something, so to speak, but, did you have something specific in mind that you were thinking that you would like in place of that, or?
Yeah, I was curious if, what our thoughts are as council on if we wanted to reduce that mile radius to be closer to the city.
I think it would, Councilwoman and Mayor Council, I think it would make sense to lower it just because we are a smaller area, right? And we only have jurisdiction in our area anyway, and we would want them to be closer, as close to us as we can. So I think limiting it for sure is definitely a must to where we're not, as Councilman Bjornsson said, allowing them for outside jurisdiction drive or extra weekend fun, not like that it would happen, but do you have a mileage in place? Because to me, I think 15 miles would be even, but then again, if you think about it, right, does that even cover to Mandan? From here?
And I think on my end of it, it's a council decision, the vehicle use. I think would be a different issue than the canine. Because as far as the police department itself, having them, you're gonna have to come to town regardless, so to stop, I don't see that. Setting up that limitation, of the 15 miles or the 10 miles, whatever that may be. I don't think that would be such an issue, but when you look at that canine vehicle, that is specific to one handler and one dog. And when you have one police officer that resides within the city limits, you really, to restrict where this individual is. I understand if it was Jamestown or Fargo or, Mont, we'll just say, but this is within this, because this specifically is for Ranger. And if we're going to Mandan or Bismarck, that doesn't seem unrealistic or what I would consider out of line. Yeah. It is still within this the metropolitan area. And if you look at Bismarck, that's further away than this particular canine unit, which would then, if you're looking at North Bismarck and South Bismarck, It's likely that where the current be would be closer than some physical. Depending on the area, so.
Finally, thoughts on that actually mentioned that it says, well, I guess this is technically just under the schedule, take home use, with
Which one?
proper rule, under the,
703.4.2 section C.
yes, thank you. Section C lists a member lives within a reasonable distance. Generally not to exceed a 6-minute drive time from the city, from a Lincoln city limits. I was just trying to find, because I knew I had read it in there somewhere, just trying to find what the actual verbiage was of it.
And this was put together based on other cities' policies, is that my understanding?
Yes, so the chief used Lexipol. There's a small peg of it down in the bottom corner. And this site is basically a site for different governmental entities to use to compile different policies. And they have a team of lawyers that review this stuff, and anytime there's any type of changes with legalities, like legislature makes any kind of changes, they ensure to update all of this and send out notices of any kind of changes that would have to take place. So I know the chief used this Lexipol, and then he also reviewed different department policies from, I know, Bismarck, I believe he checked Command and potentially Fargo. Pick and choose some of the ones that he felt would be good additions to the Lexipol policy that was provided, and compile one specific for us.
I would think that maybe that 60 minutes is a little excessive.
Mayor, does 30 sound appropriate?
Because I think, like with the lesson for that 60 minutes, I think that in bigger cities, the driving time, would be more like that 60 minutes in there, but even if we put a mileage of, within 20 or 30 miles, something like that, that would allow, if there is an individual later, or we get another canine, but we want to make sure that they're within driving distance and that not take into the commute time, but the distance rather. I mean, maybe splitting hairs.
Do we want to put this on for the next meeting? We can all kind of take a look, see what we feel is a reasonable distance / time for a commute for something like this.
Well, I think, isn't that what we did for today? I mean, I don't know that.
I think we should wait for at least Shoemaker too. Councilman Shoemaker, so that he can have a input on it, yeah.
At the last meeting, we had just gotten the documents, so we're gonna take them back and just kind of review in general. There was specific, but
So is this the format that you want them finalized in? Is Chief gonna put this specifically in his?
I believe that if we make any changes to this, it would just be updated in this format that already is. And the chief would have it on to this one.
So we want to take a look at 703.4.2 C, anything else?
I'm mayor and council, I'm reading H. And the next one too, the 703.4.3. With the vacation time, so it says vehicles are to be secured at the member's resident or the appropriate department facility at the discretion of the department when a member will be away for periods exceeding 1 week. If the vehicle remains at the residence of the member, the department shall have access to the vehicle. If the member is unable to provide access to the vehicle, it shall be part of the department. at the. Whoever is responsible, I mean, shouldn't, shouldn't we just say if they're going to be gone for a week, that it should just be part of the department? Just so that in case if that car is needed, it's already there and we don't have to worry about accessing it, going and getting it, you know what I mean? So, cause if they know that they're gonna be gone for a week, and I get it, sometimes you're on vacation, when something happens, you have to stay, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But then that way too, case in point, if they have to extend their vacation, that car's already here. So something to look into. And I think that just sets the department and the officers up, you know, just in case.
Would this be a matter of, you think, anytime?
Over a
officers
week.
gonna leave, or
A
just
week or
once
more.
it gets that week?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, too, like I said, you know, I mean, they could be gone for 4 days and then they have to call chief and be like, hey, something happened, you know. That car is then gonna have to be picked up eventually, so you can't alleviate those situations, you know, you can't predict them. But if we know that, hey, we're set for 5 days or 7 days, then the car should probably just stay here, basically.
Yeah, I can bring that up to the chief.
And then, or even if they're gonna be, excuse me, on vacation, you know, maybe leave the vehicle here at the city.
100%, that's exactly what
Whether
we're
it's a
talking about,
week
yeah.
or whether it's 3 days, you know, if you're not gonna be there, why have it, you know, with the residents?
I have a question just for clarification. Is this for all PD, or is this specifically for the K-9 unit?
I believe policy 703 for all.
Yeah, so are we? Is council authorizing take-home vehicles for police department?
I don't think we crossed that bridge yet.
But that's what this would be.
Right,
giving
it's not
authority
just-
to do.
It's not just the
Right.
K-9 unit.
Right, the
And that's why
K-9
I-
unit is separate than this.
That's why I'm kind of questioning why we would need to have all the vehicles away from the city and how much of a radius that should be, and, you know, they're not even home, why the vehicles would be in their residence instead of at the city.
Well, and do we want our patrol cars to be outside of the city?
Just the, yeah.
We
I
might
don't
pay for the
know.
gas.
And the new something, like, I guess I don't. So that would be something then to consider.
So,
The. I mean, do we? Do we have a policy? Do we need to tighten up situations in which there would be a vehicle assigned to one person? I mean, I don't know that. Like. You know, who is going to, is council going to make the decision of whether police patrol cars are take-home vehicles? Or are they going to be kept here within the city of Lincoln? With the exception of the K-9 vehicle. Because the K-9 vehicle is completely separate, I would think, than from the patrol cars.
Mayor, I think just the K-9 vehicle should be accepted for that, take home, and case in point two. If he knows that they're gone, or if she knows that they're gone, the car should be here, cause the K-9's gonna be with them anyway. But the car should definitely stay here just in case if it is needed. On vacation time, you know,
Well, so. So it's, you're there, are you? Was the intent of this to allow for take-home vehicles?
I believe in general, yes. Essentially, the chief would have the final say as to in what application, what officers would be approved to have take-home vehicles. I don't see this as being a case where if we do approve this policy, that suddenly every officer is gonna get a vehicle and they're just gonna be driving home. It would be up to the chief to determine in which situations and when officers would be allowed to take a patrol vehicle home.
Thoughts?
Councilman Bjornsted, I totally understand the idea of having the chief choose, under certain circumstances and when it's needed. I am not necessarily opposed to having him have that authority, right? However, if the officers resided in Lincoln, I think we would have a totally different conversation over this. With having some officers that do not reside within our city limits and allowing an everyday take-home vehicle, I think is out of the question. For me personally, as a council member, if they were in town and if they were residents of Lincoln, I think we would be more acceptable just because of the call time, right? It's way shorter than if Bismarck or Mandan resident would be coming in. So do I think that we need a vehicle policy like this right at this moment? I do not. I think we can definitely fine tooth and go through and pick some things out to utilize as a policy in the future, for sure.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Assuming that there is always, so say we have 2 officers on duty at any given time. If there are 2 patrol vehicles here for those officers to use, would there be any reason to be concerned about a call time for an off-duty officer?
I think that the issue is more the expense to the taxpayers. The maintenance, the gas. That sort of thing, the wear and tear, those extra miles being put on a vehicle. That then would require the city to have to pay and replace sooner. That I think is what I have been hearing from the community, that, you know, what is the rationale for having take-home vehicles? Because that's just an extra financial burden to taxpayers. Replacing the vehicles, paying that gas. And the fact that we live in such a small town that you're coming right past the city hall where those police vehicles are when you're coming into town. And if you've already got those 2 officers on duty, what is that third person going to do? That would require, you know, that 3 minutes or 4 minutes from stopping here to grab a vehicle, then to head out. I mean, that's what I've heard.
So to answer your question, Councilman Bjornsted, I think more of along the lines of, and God forbid it ever happen, but a school shooting. Say those 2 officers are on deck, our cars are here, but they're already on a call and they're in trouble, right? We need more backup. Where are they coming? Mandan? They coming from Bismarck, North Bismarck? You know what I mean? Those kids, right? There's a lot of lives in there, everywhere. Time is extremely crucial during those times. Say that somebody is barricaded in a trailer or a home, right? And those 2 officers have the place secure, but they need more help. You know what I mean? So there's so many different opportunities.
So in those scenarios, it would actually be a shorter response time if the officer already has that patrol.
Correct.
But not necessarily because they have to go through traffic, you don't know where they're coming from.
But if they're coming from home regardless, in your scenario, they would have to come back to the police department, get a police vehicle, and then go to this. Where they would be one directly from their home to this.
No, I totally understand that aspect 100%. To me, and again, if they were in Lincoln, they would already have the car. It wouldn't matter. It would be beside the point. You know what I mean? Taking a vehicle home elsewhere, just to me, logically, it just doesn't fit. To me, I think they should all stay here, closer. In a perfect world, we would have our officers living closer to us as well. But again, even if an officer has their vehicle at home, right, and that dispatch goes over, guaranteed Burley is probably gonna be here, or State Patrol will probably be out here too, just about as equally as
And if
that.
they're out having coffee
So-
and they're not that full.
They're all over,
Which is.
you know how where they're gonna be.
Right, but that's
Okay.
my point, there's no say
There's
that,
at least 3 of them in town.
it's,
Sorry.
if you've got, we'll just say that the chief is out, and just because I don't wanna bring a different officer into it, so say that, one of the patrol officers has a vehicle at their home, but they're not driving that vehicle all the time. They're out at the mall shopping. Well, they're not, what are they gonna do, drive home to get the car to come to town? No, they're gonna leave there, wherever they are, to come to town. So you're not always gonna be in a situation where you're at home and you're gonna jump in the police vehicle and come to town. You're not gonna not respond because you're in your civilian vehicle. So, if the need for a take-home vehicle for regular police use, I would be in agreement with Councilman Davis. The exception would be the K-9. I think that's a different situation.
Would it be beneficial to see if the chief could talk at the next meeting to give examples of some scenarios where he would feel that he would like to be able to assign a take-home vehicle, just so we have an understanding of what he is thinking on when this would be something he would want to apply.
I would love to hear from him, yeah. On anything that he would feel is necessary and pertinent for us to know when considering this matter. And again, I think if there was within a certain mile radius of Lincoln, that it could make more sense to have take-home vehicles in special circumstances outside of just the K-9 unit. Maybe that does work a little bit better, perhaps.
Maybe one of the things is, what. Those scenarios, that it would be necessary for a take-home vehicle. What are what does he anticipate those be, so that you're visiting with him?
I think that could be good to get an understanding of where he feels something like this would be good to have. Just so we all have a good understanding of where the thought process is on it.
That's good. Alright, so, but I do think that. When we take a look at the K-9, are you gonna go through that? Is that, I believe, is one that we see absolutely
So
to address?
the policy 309 for K-9s, I think there's only a small section of it that actually refers to the vehicle. Not necessarily the vehicle A-plane policy.
Well, maybe that would be an opportunity to take some of this vehicle use or take home vehicle. To incorporate it into. this part. Under the K money area.
Melvin, one,
So I guess at this point, I don't see. And I'm not gonna speak for everybody, but. That's where a take home vehicle. Would make sense, not as a general practice. So either to have the K9 specifically as one of the uses for vehicle use situation. Or to incorporate K9 to whatever handlers that they would have there.
So the policy for 309, I believe the intent of this policy was more so just policy on the department having canines and how their care and everything like that is handled. Not necessarily much to do with people specifically.
Okay, so we just have to review at the same time.
Yeah,
Perfect.
but yeah, I can definitely talk with the chief and see if there would be a better way of incorporating vehicle policy with the K9 policy.
Councilman Bjornsted, along with the, that H of the vehicle usage, right, the vacation time. I think incorporating something like that too should be a must, just so that if we know that they're gonna be gone 5 to 7 days, right, straight, that we have an extra vehicle just in case.
Sure.
I will just say that. The consideration of a amount of time and or mile radius, even for canine vehicle or. You know, it to me makes sense, to have. That response time be pertinent to our city and situations, you know.
That's why we got it.
Cause it just. Makes sense to me for them to be able to be available closer by. How close that is certainly something I'd love to discuss. Just so that our citizens, you know, have access to that type of care and protection in an emergency.
Sorry for lots. Councilman Bjornsted, does Bismarck have a radius or like a right time frame for their canines?
I would have to check, I'm not sure.
So you see what their recommendations and.
Yeah, I did get a copy of their take home vehicle policy. I can
Right.
see if that lists a specific radius.
Yeah, that would be nice to know what their policy is with the canine stuff. See if they have anything added into that. Should we add this on as old business again, or should we give it another meeting?
We can put it on as old business for now, if for some reason I feel we haven't been able to gather enough data to bring anything new to the council, that might let it find it.
Perfect.
And then also, if. Because these documents are lengthy. For printing purposes, if we can make them back.
Sure.
At the next meeting. We're gonna trade this over. Well, that means we write on them, so we solve the big thing. And it's really just the end of it.
That's all I have to know.
And so next is the defense ordinance. As defense ordinance that. Is on here is specific to. Definitions, just adding 2 definitions. That would be the definition for offense. And the definition for site triangle. It's not making any changes to what's allowed or disallowed. Anything like that, strictly 2 fences. Or the definitions. The fence would be that barrier not to exceed 8 feet in height, backyards, which is constructed of non-hazardous construction. Now, in this, and then the other one, the site triangle is just the description that's used elsewhere. The site triangle is an area unobstructed vision at the intersection of streets, alleys, and driveways. The purpose of the site triangle is to ensure visibility for operation of vehicles, bicycles, pedestrians. It gives the distance of the 25 feet for dissecting both directions along the street right of way. Now, in the new the residential standards, what you had presented to you previously was fence being a structure erected to enclose or separate areas typically made of wood, vinyl. So we could either change that definition to match the section 902 or to simply say as defined in chapter 9 of the Lincoln Code. If we are going to adopt the ordinance to define the fence and site triangle, then we're not having two definitions of two different areas.
One thing that I was curious about, Mayor, is I believe that in the ordinance, it states that fence is not to exceed 6 feet. Is that correct? So would there be any confusion with changing the definition here?
It's figure
Maybe 6 feet
in the ordinance.
in this. Yeah, pretty sure it's 6. So maybe just something to consider.
For standards, or it's, let's say.
Oh, this would, if we're doing right, and we would have to make those decisions on what those heights, because what happened, now let's come to that, so. Previously, it was 6 feet to the residence, was the residence, the front door, is it the garage? And then because there were conflicting requirements of the, it was stated, well, we could have this 4-foot fence. So we have to decide, is this going to be 6 feet, is it 8 feet, where the front of the house is, or front of the yard, or we don't do front yards, but so it can be changed. This is just a draft. This isn't what our current ordinance is specifically. This is when we're this, because this would be a new section. So we would definitely have to align it with what we currently have, or make the adjustment to allow for either a 6 foot, 4 foot. Because that's where all of it started with the fence ordinances themselves. So, Abby, do you have a preference as far as 6 to 8 feet?
Well, I think it's nice to give the citizens as much leeway as they would like, so I would always say for more choice on their part.
And I think that it was changed to 8 feet. Are you looking?
I'm trying to, I know that we have talked about some of this sometime
If it's
in 2024, and I'm sort of kind of looking at that. I know one of the issues that came up with site triangle and fences is that we probably need to look at the zoning category, because there are some zoning category requirements in the industrial area for fencing and setbacks and things that might not be appropriate in the residential area. So I think we need to be careful about putting in a definition that is all encompassing for the entire city. But I'm trying to
Going
find
through
this,
that.
yeah, trying to find the specifics. So, I mean, I think that what might make some sense is using kind of this draft process to come up with the answers to the questions that you're asking, like how high the fence should be, where should we want the limits, what kind of materials or whatever, and not get too invested in the actual language, and then let us figure out how to put it into the code. Because we have not done that, but my recollection is that Greg Azer and I looked at some of these things with fences and that's what we ran up against, that we have to change it here, if you want to change it in some other place as well. And maybe there was, you tell us what it is you want to achieve, and then we'll just do that part of the code. We'll define it in residential areas for single family units versus multifamily units, and fencing might be different. And the site triangle probably will be the same, but
I do know the site triangle, things of residential area versus industrial, commercial area.
Yeah.
Different.
yeah, you're looking exactly what I think we came up with, was that there was a definition already, and like, what do you want to do with these? You want a single standard or just, and maybe it makes sense to start with the residential areas where that's the main concern, and
This is the.
figure out changes,
This is
the changes to in those areas only, leave everything else together and try to harmonize everything throughout the ordinances, all ordinances.
So we'll have to take a look at a site triangle relative to what that means, industrial, commercial
Based on this.
versus residential. So, but what as far as heights? You know, that is. The one property had that 4-foot fence. Yeah, previously it had 6 feet, so are we going to? But do you want to be looking at changing residential fencing to different heights? Or keeping that a standard no greater than? Or simply the 6 foot?
So can we just, if are we in the weeds too much, if we just say, no higher than 8 feet? Are we concerned about what people would do if it said that?
I mean, 6 foot, I feel is a very standard size, unless they're custom building something, I think it's probably unlikely that they're gonna be doing something higher than 6 foot. It would also depend on if we're specifically speaking of residential, where I feel like if you get into an industrial area, that height, we might be wanting to be higher.
Right, but this is specific to residential.
I don't, council and Councilwoman Artavia, I like the idea of nothing over 8. I think capping it at 8 and leaving it there, just because simply, a lot of people have fences that are 6 feet, right? But then they might add something on the top for extra privacy for, say their neighbor has a deck next to them, right? And that could add an extra 12 inches, 6 inches, you know? And then that would also then protect them for not having to be in violation of something.
Well, I think most of the time if you're buying pre-fence, you're gonna have either a 4 foot or a 6 foot. You know, those are kind of the standards, rather unless you are having a custom.
But just to play the advocate on the other side here, what would a person do if they wanted to add that extra height for privacy? Would they be in violation, or could they apply for something? I mean, what would the citizens do if that was what they wanted?
And I mean, in changing it to 8 foot, I was just saying, you know, it's typically going to be, I don't expect that you have a whole lot of them, as far as fence heights.
I mean, whatever is easier, but I just always like to think about giving people the freedom to do what they want with their property.
So what do you think, should we change that to the fences, side yard and rear yard to 8 feet?
Yes, I
Not
have
to
an
exceed.
objection to that.
I like
Not
that.
to exceed.
Not to exceed.
Not to get into the weeds too much with the whole fence, right? Draft, and I know it states on here fences for front yard, none. Maybe we can just keep that in the back of our minds and just take a look at that one again with me.
And touching on that, property standards, not
Yep, yep. The table and just something to look into, and to think about. If that is something that we want to look more into, just keep that in mind.
You're talking about just making a change here on this table.
Right.
Visuals.
Yep, yep. And then, it states no fences for front yard.
Yeah.
I know some. A little bit.
Yeah.
I think that there was a reason for the fence.
I was just gonna ask, did the council change an ordinance to allow shorter fences in the front yard? a couple
No.
years ago?
I just got a question to clarify. So when you say backyards and side yards, does that include the front of the house side yard?
That's
Also,
where,
I believe it was to the front corner of the house.
okay, cause so what's considered the house? Is that the front of the garage or is that what does that consist of?
I guess the way I would see it is if
Progress.
the garage is attached to the house, it'd be part of the house.
Okay, that's the way I would look at it too also. And this whole thing got started because we have a resident that built a fence to the sidewalk. So it goes like a 6-foot fence.
Are you talking about in front of the house?
Yes, so it goes 6 foot to where the house is, and then it drops down to 4 foot and then continues all the way to the sidewalk. And that is where this
and
whole
that,
fence started.
and it went to the floor not to obstruct view.
Yeah.
And I think that's why there are no fences in front yards
Yes.
for the obstruction of view and things like that, so.
Right, but we also have other properties that have other forms of things in the front that could obstruct too, big rocks, boulders, other things. But
I know with the site triangle ordinance, it has it being no greater than a height of 30 feet for the site triangles. I don't know if that would necessarily be something that we would feel should be applied to fencing in a front yard that isn't in a site triangle.
Well, and a lot of it,
Number that is.
and I know a lot of it when I first started out here, when I was working with Rob, he and the engineers that we worked with, they didn't allow anyone to put anything in the site triangle. Like nothing. You did not get to put anything because if there is a small child that is running that is less than 3 feet tall, that comes running out from that fence, you're not gonna see it in the front of your car and you are just gonna mow that child over. Because the site triangle, yeah, you can see over it, but what about what's behind the fence? So that's why we were always talking about nothing, absolutely nothing in the site triangle, because it could be literally anything. You could run over your neighbor's dog. And right there, you got a big thing going on then. I mean, you got all the stuff. So that is why, like, when I first started, Rob and the engineer that we worked with, it was like absolutely nothing. I know that there was a person who wanted to put a concrete pad in on a corner lot and they did not let him put it in they made him stay back from the corner so far, so he could not park a vehicle there. So you could keep that site triangle. So that is what I know from what I started working with Rob, that's kind of the way they did all their stuff. And I do know that we do have some properties that have a fence past the front of the house. Those have been there for decades. I don't know. I don't know when they got put in. I just know this whole thing started on just the recent one. I didn't know if the other ones had gotten, well, not even grandfathered, but like, yeah, if they went to planning and zoning and they got permission to do it or anything like that, I have no idea. So, that is why I never did anything with those, because I don't know when they got put in. I wasn't gonna go 20 years back or whenever the house was put in, I don't know exactly when that all happened, so that's why I never did anything like that, and those houses have been here for decades. So, I can only take care of the stuff that I know of now. But that's why this whole thing started up with that, so, but yeah, it all started and then it got talks of what everybody wanted to do with allowing you to the front if they wanted to, if they didn't want to, or stuff like that, and it just kind of fell off the radar for a while, so.
Well, and I think that the intent, when all this was not to enclose the entire yard, it was working with what the front of that yard or front of the house was, whether that be the drive or the garage or the front door. And like you said, going from that 6 foot down to, because that fence that you're referencing, that was to maybe keep some of the debris in that vacant lot next to this property from,
And it's
continued
still
damage.
undeveloped next to it too, so.
Right, so, yes. I think that's kind of where all of that started, as far as taking a look at what that fence is.
Well, this like triangle too, I can't tell you how many times, like I have to even double check and triple check just because of the way that the cars are parked around me. And there's kids constantly on my street, so, I mean, cars on the street are in the side triangle, So you just gotta watch all the time.
Yeah,
Part of the, members of the council, I think part of the other issue is in looking at your code in chapter 5. Chapter, ordinance 50401 is specific to defenses. And then in your supplemental provisions in 90305, there's some additional language about fences and side triangles. And I'm not sure all of those are consistent. So I think, that part of. Yeah, I think the best way is to figure out what it is you want on a going forward basis. And then you will put it in a fashion. And then certainly it'll apply to any new construction. Certainly an argument that there's an ordinance and there has been an ordinance in place that precludes fences in beyond the front face of the house. Whether what you do about that is somewhat similar to the conversation that council had with a lot of the residents a month or so ago. I think maybe you start with a going forward basis and then being careful that not to allow any additional new fences to be constructed. I think that might be the best that you could do.
Right. Well, and I would like actually, in the handouts that we have already. We have the purpose and the definitions. I think if we maybe were to take a look at each of the sections, go through them and work our way through this draft. Then we actually go, if we could start that. Just to kind of take a look at the purpose, in that section 5 purpose. Is there any update or changes that you would want or see necessary?
I could start out in section 503. Number 4, artificial turf is permitted only with prior written approval from the city. I was just curious as to why.
It was just part of what I did when I put this together. Is I just took information from this ordinance, that ordinance, not specific to the city. Maybe we'll just say Washburn, because that doesn't mean we have to have it in here. I just have in here different things we can either take away.
I just
or
thought,
it might not be applicable to the city.
sure, I just thought, maybe I'm unaware of some reason why we would need to have, so I thought maybe it wasn't necessary.
Maybe down south.
Maybe outside.
I've actually come into the office actually during the summer, so.
Really?
Yes, it has.
So do we want to have?
Official turf.
I think if we just exit it out, we would be fine, take it off completely.
All right, so we're.
We don't need excess rules for no reason.
Right.
I think, before we get into this too much. We should probably decide, do we want to have? This as an ordinance, or do we want to use something like this to correct the ordinances that we already have? Regarding most of this stuff.
I've been shared with, that it's confusing. The ordinance, because does it apply to new construction, does it apply to residential? And this, what you decide, but I think it's nice for somebody in the community to say, okay, I can go to section 5. And it specifically addresses residential properties. I don't have to go anywhere else. It's our responsibility as council to make sure that the ordinances are aligned with each other. But to have one area versus section chapter 9 and 5 and 4 and 13, you have to go to each of these individual ones where we have something specific to residential, one section of ordinance, then everyone knows where to go to. And that was kind of my intent of putting it the way I did.
And I completely understand that. I guess my somewhat concern is enacting something like this. We are still gonna have to go back to those other ordinances to either amend or remove them.
Right, and I actually do have. I think it's the last page.
When it says to amend and supplement existing chapters even
Yeah,
to.
Right. And I do have another sheet that has the chapters that we would have to make reference to. So that's, is understood, we're taking. But this was more to just have the conversation, these are the things we're gonna change, and once we change those or come to an agreement on those, then we're gonna have to amend these other sections, the 5, 8, 9, and 13.
Okay.
Mayor-
Sorry, I just want to make sure that we're all aware of that. Just enacting this, there's still gonna be a lot more with the current ordinance that.
Right.
To be updated.
You might be able to. Carve out, it might say, notwithstanding any other provision of the code, right? And we might be able to get. We might be able to kind of
Find ways to
find some ways to deal with. One section, notwithstanding any other provision of this code in R1. Any property zoned to R1, starting on this date moving forward, here's the requirement, right? And we don't need to be quite as concerned. I mean, we might be able to draft around some of that, help deep into the changes of the code.
And just like you said, Mayor, so as it's clear for citizens, that we get to that point where it's.
And all of March folks, 10 different ordinances. They say different things, yeah.
After help city staff.
Mayor, can we take this home then and fine tooth it and come back?
Can we look over some, I would like to at least discuss some of the specifics, because I think that's what we were supposed to do.
I have my changes, if you're interested in my right, yes.
I have quite a few as well. Do we want to just, like you said, start with one section, or like just try to knock out one or two sections tonight and then.
Every night.
Yeah.
Oh, so, council, for the sake of time. On the first and second page, front and the back, does anybody have any more to share in those? Cause that's all I
The
had.
purpose of definitions.
I do have some stuff on the second page.
For that page.
Looking this right before we get to that though. looking again at this section. Part of me that has some concerns with like further throughout this document is, in my mind, I see city government as something that should do what is in regard to the safety of the citizens and their well-being. My concern is a lot of things that are in this document, a lot of things that have been discussed over the years, dig more into preferences on just personal preferences on how things should look and stuff like that. I have a hard time feeling that the city should control things that are more of an opinion on how things should be rather than the actual safety and well-being of residents. In my mind, that's more what HOAs and covenants are. So just kind of a heads up before we dig too much into this, I would say close to a third to a half of this, too much in favor of, just to kind of give people a heads up where I'm going to be coming from. So like looking at a purpose, it talks about aesthetic harmony, attractive residential environments. To me, that's not something that the city should concern.
Well, I think the purpose is going to change when we have the document. You know, and I think that do you have a rewritten purpose?
No, I haven't done anything for changing the purpose of it.
You just wanna
if
write
we're
that?
going through and
Yeah, and I
making different changes, that it probably will alter
absolutely.
in the end.
And this is just. I think, you know, sometimes that summary. Or that introduction is the last thing you write.
Sure.
So once we get through the rest of the stuff, that will guide the purpose.
I get that.
And I just wanna say, I concur with you. I agree with you. I think it's not necessarily, you know, maybe necessary to have some of that language in there, so I'm thinking similarly. So what did you have on the second page? Number?
On the second page, section 5, XX, it's mainly talking about landscaping, rock, shrubs. Section 3 of, or subsection 3 of that, this gravel, pea rock, crushed rock, fines, or small loose materials are prohibited in front yards and any visible area from the public earth. In my opinion, I feel like those things could be allowed with the requirement that it is, I believe in another spot, you have it here referencing, like a barrier, something to hold those items within an area, so it has spill out, etc.
Durable edging and physical barriers.
Yes.
So the 2B right above it, yeah.
Oh, yep, correct, yeah, 2B. In my opinion, I feel like the items listed in number 3 should also be allowed with that requirement that there's a durable edging or physical barrier.
How would you feel taking out the small loose materials and keeping the crushed fine rock, gravel, and pea rock?
We have city engineer.
Just a thought on this item, because where I live, we use something similar, so having issues with runoff and the rock and whatever would, you know, get into your yard or get into the roadway, is we used a product that basically is like you're spraying glue on it and holds it into place. So that might be something else that we could consider as a community that would be
Like added into like the durable edging.
yeah, give them an option to, you know, especially if they already have, you know, extensive landscaping in place and they're trying to follow along with changes that might give them an idea. You know, if they don't know about it, might be something, and honestly, I'm not sure. I thought it was pretty cost effective, so it might be an option.
And that was one of the things that when the discussion of the decorative rock came up, the property owner had said, you know, can't I use that spray
Wonderful.
for that? But the ordinance as it was written previously was, you know, you can't be up here. And I don't know what the product is, but I think that that would be great. Is it, I don't know about you, but I would want to have, you know, that border 3 inches put around the front of any of the rocks or anything. Either, so.
Well, and in our experience, it doesn't always stay in the border, so.
Yeah.
Hence the glue option worked well for us. One other thing, if I can jump ahead a little bit, on different conversations over the last few months, we've talked about how are we going to address maybe places that have been that way for a long time. And I've been thinking about that, and I know it was mentioned a little bit earlier in this conversation, but I'm wondering if a way that we could address that would be easy for the community to understand would be if you come forward to make any kind of improvement, that would be the time that we would maybe ask you to come up to code with some other items at your property. And it might limit having to try and track all these things down. But it might be an opportunity where you're treating everyone the same. If you want to do any kind of upgrade, maybe that's the time that the city looks at other issues and making sure that you're up to code.
And that's actually on the last page, number 3, your modification for the purpose.
I just thought while I was up here, I would jump in and mention that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's perfect, thank you, because this is any significant updates, renovations or alterations after October 1 of 25, the modified portion of the property shall be brought into full compliance with this. So if somebody does, because we've all been told
Right,
there's no grandfathering.
Right.
Or
unless we say,
or, you know, up to this date, except. So you'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll have to harmonize that with how your code actually reads. And we'll get there, right? But I don't know that I would say major improvement. It also will be if they quit using how your code is now is ultimately these are changes to your zoning requirements. And you can change the zoning. And the question is if somebody has a pre-existing use, they're generally allowed to continue with that pre-existing use until they quit using it or until there's a major improvement or upgrade or something else. But I don't know that we need to add. We might need to add some provision of code to deal with this, but you already have some things that are already in place. I guess the question is, what does the city want to do, if anything, with? I mean, it seems like there are people who are, of the people who aren't in compliance, some of them are not in compliance because of actions of the city. Either giving information that they could do something or they've got variances or something, right? And some are not in compliance because they didn't either seek permission or they willfully violated what the code said. And you don't have to treat them differently, but that's something to think about.
And I like the fact that we have our attorney to align all of those things. After we decide the specifics on. You know, I mean, if we could take a look at. The landscaping and yard standards, you know, you had mentioned that gravel, peat rock, crushed rock, fines. So what change would you?
I just got a question. I was reading through your stuff and it's actually about what you guys are talking about. The gravel, P-rock, crushed fines and small loose material are prohibited in the front yards. Or visible public right of ways. And then if you go down to 7, parking pads shall not be constructed of landscape rock or other decorative materials. And if you go up to 5, in the top of the page, decorative rock material, 2 inches or larger diameter, gravel, P-rock, and crushed fines are not considered landscaping rock. So you can make your parking pads out of P-rock and all that stuff. I'm just trying to,
We haven't
so I
looked
get
at
it
it.
clear.
I put all kinds of stuff in there for us to take out, and then we'll.
We haven't
Right,
looked at
no, I'm just,
This
that's,
is
I was just kind of,
rough draft.
yeah, no, I was just kind of, if. Just kind of, just bring it to your attention, so that way I was kind of. One more thing to kind of look at, because I was kind of confused on that one,
Yeah,
so,
no, we put it in there.
right, no, I did, I was just mentioning it, because. Maybe something to
But I
clarify,
didn't
so
even
that way
look at
nobody
it.
else could. If somebody else reads it, they might get confused on that one too, so just. Just bringing it up.
I think we need to include you, director, in our proofing.
Yeah.
Councilman Bjornsted, what would you change on 3?
Basically that those items would be allowed in the front yards in any visible. In any area visible from the public right away. But has that requirements to be contained by durable or physical barriers.
Would you be okay with Xing out the smallest materials? Cause that's pretty wide variety. You know,
And if I remember right, the engineer at the last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, whenever it was, explained that those crushed fines are like 3/8 inch or smaller, so
right, yeah,
very, very, very small, which I think even a hard barrier isn't really gonna do much to contain that.
right.
So yeah, I wouldn't have an issue with that, I think.
And we could perhaps add the spray adhesive glue in the language as well.
I think 2B would be suffice for the spray on glue.
Would we want this spray type glue to be a requirement or just listed as being
A possibility.
something that can be used, yeah, in addition to itself for that material isn't needed in this area?
So how about, be contained by durable edging? Glue spray, whatever, we can take a look at what that.
Terminology is.
So contained by durable edging, not physical barrier, but, durable edging or spray
Spray glue.
compound or.
Right,
Or
yeah,
combination or something.
yeah, add it into those, I think would be
Okay,
a good spot.
keep or take out physical barriers,
Yeah,
I would keep it.
keep it.
I
Okay.
would keep it.
I
in
think
some-
physical barriers is essentially the same thing as durable. It might be repetitive to say the two, I guess, but.
It still looks
Have
good
it
though.
Twice that, so as far as number 3, the gravel and P-rock are prohibited.
Allowed.
They would be allowed, essentially the only one in number 3 that would be prohibited would be the smallest materials. I guess in this case would be considered like the crushed fines.
Okay, so, but up here we have that decorative, so is the gravel or P-rock decorative? What is
Depends on
the
who you
use?
look at it, yes.
Yeah, so if we're allowing the gravel and the P-rock, right, for 3, then I think it should be allowed up in the landscaping. But no crushed fine, of course.
So number 3 would be more crushed rock or smallest materials are prohibited?
No,
Just
3
the
would be
small.
gravel, P-rock are allowed in front yards.
It depends on which part of that you're trying to change.
Right.
Yes, I think you're both looking at
Right.
changing it.
We're allowing
True,
this, not
yeah,
allowing
true.
that, because.
Or
if
rewrite it
we're-
as the loose fines are prohibited in the front yard. So,
That's kind of.
I think that's
okay,
probably
okay, yep,
the cleaner way to go with it.
perfect.
So instead, take gravel, P-rock and crushed rock fines out and just leave it as small loose materials are prohibited, or what are those small loose prohibited? Or materials?
I
Yeah,
guess,
that's why
I think the intention would actually be to leave the crushed rock fines, because that's not gonna be the same as the gravel or crushed asphalt. Since it's specifying the fines, I think it would be safe to keep that as part of the prohibit.
Okay.
So,
So
gravel and P-rock.
Yeah, correct, P-rock. So it's a crushed rock fines or small loose materials are prohibited in front yards and any area visible from the public.
So then we have to exit out gravel and P-rock in 5 then too, because they're acceptable then.
5.
Up in the landscaping rock, right? Definitions.
Oh,
Definition.
correct.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to take off the gravel and the P-rock then. Because we're allowed.
Yeah, so it just says crushed fines are not considered landscape rock.
Yep.
All right, so then here's my question. The gravel and P-rock, is that considered decorative, the landscaping to align with that 2-inch in size?
I think for this purpose, we would consider that part of the landscape rock. So we would probably have to remove the 2 inches or larger diameter.
And see, the 2 inches or larger was put in there to add weight to what would then get into the stormwater
So can we,
or into the streets as far as sewer drains, but the stormwater having all of that gravel and P stuff going into
Yep.
the drains and going out to the water.
I understand that's probably the largest concern that Director Shute has regarding any rock being around the boulevard area. And I would be of the opinion that in the process of doing this, I don't see an issue, and maybe the attorney can correct me, if we would have a line essentially stating that if there's evidence of this material coming from the property on the street, being documented with like photo evidence or something like that, that it would be a violation of the ordinance. And then if it's not corrected within so many days, fines can ensue, etc. like that.
So question here, because all of this started because of that property that had the decorative rock that came all the way to the street. So we're still looking at that the easement area where there's not gonna be anything regardless. So if you look at it in that
so there shouldn't be anything that goes into the street.
right, so if there is nothing coming up to say that sidewalk distance
Right,
in your yard forward,
you shouldn't have
then
it.
that's not going to be an issue. Yeah. The issue comes with somebody that brings that landscape rock
Straight up to the curb.
all the way to the curb.
Right.
And that's where that 2-inch diameter to keep that heavy enough so it doesn't blow in, because the gravel, peat rock, you know, those are going to end that 3 feet in regardless, because that's an easement.
Where are you being 3 feet?
Or I'm just saying, I don't know how it's that, because it's from the center of the road that.
City right away. You can just say city right away and then it covers all that.
The issue
So-
there though is that the city right away going up into somebody's property is not going to stay on that street.
Understand. I'm just giving a visual.
Should we classify it being like, you know, the 2 inches cannot be where? How do I wanna word that? Decorative rock and landscaping materials must be ahead of the, you know, like in front of the easement boulevard.
So what about if you put, any decorative rock within the easement must be greater than 2 inches?
That's what I was trying to get.
Even if it's in the easement, I feel like it should be bigger than 2 inches, because if you think about it, that's 2 inches.
That's what we're saying, yeah.
So if it's 2 inches or bigger and they do 3 inches, that's that big. That is the main reason the whole rock in the boulevard came into, is so we don't suck it up in the snow blower and shoot it towards your house. That will still go through. My thought is if it's 5 inches or bigger, it's plenty small enough, nice decorative, you can do anything you wanted in the boulevard then. And initially, when this whole thing came into, I didn't have any problem with what anybody wanted to do from sidewalk back. If you wanted to do rock, crushed asphalt, crushed concrete, whatever you wanted to do, I had no problem. Do what you want to do. In the city right away, the only thing I didn't want is I don't want people using it as a driveway, because that's when it gets drug out into the road. What I proposed was you can do it in the city right of way if you're going to do it decorative along your driveway, along all that stuff like that. You can go around the hydrants, you can go around a light pole, stuff like that. Because even when people do put a parking pad in, you got to stay 3 feet away from a light pole, 6 feet away from a hydrant. Well, nobody's going to run a sprinkler line over there to water that little area, so then they just leave it go when it's dirt, weeds, and it looks bad. And a lot of people don't like that, so then they don't want to leave it like that, so they ask what they can do. Well, my compromise was if they could do a 5-inch rock or greater, they could put it there, because 5 inches isn't going to go through our snow blower. It will jam it up and our shear pit will break, and then we'll know there's something there. It's not going to shoot it towards your house. It's not going to nothing. And you would still be able to have it in the city right away as your decorative rock. My only stipulation was you should limit how wide, because if you just let them free go it, well, yeah, they're gonna put 5-inch rock, fill it in with whatever they want, and then they'll just drive on it. And it's another driveway. Well, that's what we're trying to limit, is not have people driving on it to drag it to the road. If they don't drive on it, it won't get dragged out to the road. So I mean, if you let them do from the sidewalk back, rock, P-rock, whatever, it's not a big deal, because it doesn't really make it to the road as long as they keep it off their driveways and stuff like that. It's not going to run out. It's just in the city right away is where I'm concerned with, because I don't want the city to have to pay for a big bay window or somebody's basement window. So,
For the snow blower
or a snow blower.
So, I'm sorry.
no, that was the only one.
So it's. If we do this for landscaping. Along those lines that, having a section for decorative rock landscaping, nothing in the city right of way of any product over a wide 24-inch, 2 feet
You
wide.
do 4 feet wide. I mean, that's that big. That's a pretty big area to go next to your driveway. Small enough where you're really not going to use it for a car, but a decent width where you can make a really nice plants and rocks and do whatever you got to do in it. I mean,
And then if you want to have it, and not to say that this is what.
but that was still.
But you're just suggesting.
Yes, I'm just suggesting that this is kind of like a compromise thing if people want to have the decorative rock, because me personally, I think it looks nice. I think it looks great. People all like to do that stuff, and I'm not objected to it. I think it looks good. And it just gives them more options to do around the light poles and the hydrants and stuff like that. And personally, I would prefer that too, because then the grass isn't growing over the valves by the hydrant, and then we don't have to dig them up, because then they're right there, and then the rocks are around and stuff. So, I mean, we would still have like the border around it to maintain it in that spot, and you could still do the spray glue and everything like that. It would just have to be. I don't know, I guess I'd have to see the size of a 5-inch rock, I don't know, 4-inch or whatever, I'm just trying to picture it in my mind right now, so. But. Try to figure out a good size that we could have. And then have the border, and even with. You could put plants in there. It wouldn't even be a big deal, like. Nothing like a shrub or a tree or nothing like that, but like. Decorative grass or something like that. I've seen people like the one that's down that we had, this whole thing came up from. Cause if it ever came to where we were gonna put sidewalks in, it would be easy to take out. It's not gonna be a difficult thing where we're gonna have all these roots everywhere and stuff like that, so. I'm trying to compromise for the citizens and not. Just be like, this is what you're gonna do and this is how it's gonna go type of thing, so I still wanna give people the option to do stuff with their yard.
So if I'm hearing. 4 foot wide or 4 feet next to the driveway, not to exceed 4 feet next to the driveway. Up to the right of way.
In city right of way, yeah.
Within the city right of way. With. But allowing within the city right of way as long as it's that 4 or 5 inch diameter.
Right, just,
But still with the barrier.
Yes. yes,
Okay.
just so the rock is big enough to jam the snow blower is all I'm looking for, because. I don't wanna shoot it out, I want it to jam up the snow blower. And stop it before it goes anywhere, so.
So what about if you've got that rock, but then you have smaller pieces? Inside of it, cause you're not gonna buy a truckload of 5-inch. Boulders to put in your yard, I'm not saying you would or wouldn't, but.
What blue color, blue coming out of
I mean, we don't wanna get too in the weeds of saying you have to do this A, B, C, and D. But you're gonna have somebody ask, well, does that mean we can't have filler rock?
Well, I'm definitely not a landscape architect, but my understanding is that bigger sized rock used in landscaping, which if I remember right, goes from like 6 inches to boulder, like the next size would be boulder, is called river rock. So it might be a way that you could define this bigger size as river rock. And
Or small rock.
Yeah, because river rock, that, to me, river rock is,
2-3 inch.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's river rock.
so we would want to just put in something with dimensions
Yeah.
in the definitions. So that you can limit where those sizes are.
Yeah, and we currently have in the draft, there's 2 inches. What is council, what do you think, is that need to be increased?
Well, a filler rock I feel would be okay too, so I feel like the bigger rock would help hold that in, and then it did spray the glue down, it would all together. Just
So
fine.
that would almost be a barrier.
Right,
And also the thing with the definition of the landscape rock being 2 inches or larger. I don't think we would necessarily want to make that a larger number, because that definition isn't specific to the boulevard area. That's.
Yeah, we're talking about all of
covering everything that's in the
landscaping.
front. So,
We're not.
and if we aren't putting that size, if we aren't doing the requirement that rock further up in the yard is this size, I don't think we'd want to increase that.
So do we need to then add, in here, either in the definition or in the standards, that no only those rocks greater than whatever would be allowed in the city right away?
But if we do set it up so you can have these larger rocks with smaller stuff around. That kind of something, you know.
So is it either A or B? you can have rock in the easement or in the right of way or not.
I think decorative rock or landscaping material must stay within or stay out of the boundaries of the easement and boulevard. And then you could say be at least 2 inches in size.
But I mean, this whole conversation was about stuff within.
Because currently.
But this is landscaping and yard standards, so are we just being specific, like, we can't just lump it in, right, just easement and boulevard when we're talking about landscaping and yard standards.
I would say as its own line item.
So, right, so then decorative rock or landscaping materials within the easement and boulevard must be within the 2
Question mark.
inches.
This and
2 inches plus.
or
3 inches
whatever.
plus, 4 inches plus, whatever we choose.
It depends on if we have a requirement of having some of this larger, like 5-6 inch rock with it, though.
May I make a suggestion? I mean, what I think you're discovering is turning what you want into legislation is difficult. What I would suggest it might, I mean, it is, I mean, like, first you have to figure out what it is that you want to accomplish, and then you have to figure out how to write it into your code. And what I would suggest is perhaps it might be a better use of the council's time for you to come up with this idea that, yes, we will allow rock in the boulevard or in the city's right of way, but it has to be X number of inches. And it can't be wide. Like if you lay out those parameters, then I think it might be a better use of your time to have Gavin or I and try to figure out how to
Put it in.
right? Just because I think that you're gonna get really bogged down in how, how do you do it? And it better if you've decided all of the policy questions, which is what you're doing right now. And then, we can help you put together an outline, or we can, I can work with you to do that, we can get a draft and then come back. I think you're gonna really struggle if you try to do both of these in one bite. If you try to set the policy and figure out how to say it in your code, I think you're better off setting all of the policy things you want. And then we can figure out how to group them together in a way that makes sense for you in the code.
So to go along with this section 5, should we scratch out 7, since this is just landscaping and yard standards, and we already have that in the parking, you know what I mean? In the ordinance already, so we don't have to have it doubled.
Yeah.
So striking 7.
So is there a most proactive way for us to move forward this evening with this in light, Monty, of what you've just said? For example, what does council think about submitting our review to the mayor, and then you come up with more of like a policies standard?
Combine them into one document and then bring it back for everybody.
Right, and then when council member Shoemaker is with us as well, so that we can come back and maybe do a little bit more time efficient perhaps.
I would ask if you want to, just hand yours to me. I will incorporate them, I will color code if this was this for.
If you're okay with it, I think it'd probably be better with my document if I take it home and kind of fill things out, because I have stuff
Okay.
all over, just to make it clear on.
Email it.
That
All
would
right,
probably be good.
I put my name on.
He's like, I'm good, here you go.
and then that way we'll see what everybody's thoughts are. I'll send it ahead of the next meeting, so we can come back and have some.
That's
And I'll
my
send
thought
you a
process in
message.
the next couple of days here, just clean it up. Perfect.
So we'll be addressing more the policy issues versus trying to develop the ordinance.
Yeah.
I think that's
we'll
great.
let the-
Well, and we can work on that or
Yeah.
whatever, but just to draft, having done this, with the draft, the specific language of what, how you're gonna put there in the committee is.
We'll be here for a long time.
Yes, no,
Now, and the problem is you're gonna come up with something here and then you're gonna get a little bit further and you're gonna realize that these two things are together and they should be. Yeah.
Good point. All right, and then, Councilwoman Davis, if you have yours and you want to send it to me.
Yes, I would definitely email. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So,
Thank you.
I'll consolidate it, send it out as soon as I get from everybody, their input. So hopefully then by next week, we'll have that sent out. Number 14, back the blue grant.
Okay, so Chief Giddings reached out to me over a week ago, closer to 2 weeks ago, shortly after the last meeting. I believe it's a yearly thing. This Back the Blue grant is provided to help provide essentially like bonus, like retention bonuses to different departments around the state. Just to help encourage retaining officers. Our department was actually awarded the amount of just shy of $17,000. And speaking with Chief Gaines, he said that 6 of our officers are eligible to receive funds from this grant. His understanding is that it would just basically be split evenly over the 6 employees. And so with this, I would like to make a motion to have Chief Giddings accept this grant on behalf of the Lincoln Police Department.
Make a motion to approve the Back the Blue grant for the Lincoln PD.
Yeah.
I believe I would be the first if you want to second.
Oh, yeah, cool. I'll second that motion.
So we have a first
bad.
by Councilman Beerstead, second by Councilwoman Davis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any discussion? So moved. Great. There, and if we could get the roll call for that, please.
Artadia,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
and Berenstain.
Yes.
I missed the whole motion part when you said that. Okay, sorry.
I maybe could have worded it a little clearer as well.
That was my bad.
So, next we have the engineer report.
We did, didn't we?
No, that was contracts.
Oh, sorry.
Madam Mayor, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you amend this to add in the Burley County?
I put that as number 15.
So I will let you,
I
mean
will
on
take
that.
that then, thank you. So, Burley County. Here it is. This had. There are 2 resolutions that Burley County had sent over. Or 1 resolution and 1 mitigation plan. I'll just read it real quickly. Whereas the city of Lincoln recognizes the threat that natural man-made technological hazards pose to people and property within the city of Lincoln, whereas Burley County has prepared the 2025 Burley County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan in accordance with federal laws. And including Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act as amended, and the National Flood Insurance Act of 1968 as amended, and the National Dam Safety Program as amended. Whereas 2025 Burley County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan identifies mitigation goals and actions to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people and property in the city of Lincoln from the impacts of future hazards and disasters. Whereas adoption by the city of Lincoln demonstrates its commitment to hazard mitigation and achieving the goals outlined in the 2025 mitigation hazard or multi-hazard mitigation plan. The City of Lincoln Commission adopts the 2025 Burley County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan. While content related to the City of Lincoln may require revisions to meet the plan approval requirements, changes occurring after adoption will not require the city of Lincoln to re-adopt as further iterations of the plan. Subsequent plan updates following the approval period for this plan will require separate adoption resolutions. And that is something specific, Burleigh County, the city of Bismarck, the city of Lincoln, this year annual resolutions or updates that they've done. Lincoln resolution for Burleigh County Emergency Management, whereas the North Dakota Legislative Assembly passed the North Dakota Disaster Act of 1985, enacting an emergency management law embodying all aspects of disaster emergency preparedness for all types of hazards which could seriously affect the city, whereas law provides that each county shall maintain an emergency management organization that serves the entire county. And each city shall provide an emergency management organization of its own, or shall participate in the countywide emergency management organization. Whereas the state law requires that cities and counties shall notify the Division of Homeland Security of the manner in which the city and the county are providing for the activities of the local emergency management organization and further additional information relating thereto as the division requires. Whereas Burleigh County Local Emergency Operations Plan utilizes the National Incident Management System and assigns tasks and responsibilities to organizations within the county. It establishes a broad concept for conducting responses and recovering operations should an emergency or disaster threaten or occur in the Burleigh County and cities therein. And now therefore be it resolved that the city of Lincoln will participate in the Burleigh County Emergency Management Program and adopts the Burleigh County Local Emergency Operations Plan. So.
Do you want to read it again?
So then I guess what they are looking for then is motion to approve and sign and adopt the resolutions as of this evening, just so you do know that Mary Sanger with the emergency management was out here, spoke with chief auditor, and I believe Director Shute was part of that discussion, going over what Lincoln updates to. No, you weren't. Okay. Just that. Oh, Chief Hire. All right. So just give us the updates as far as what their plan is to make sure that we align. So that part of it was taken in. So if we want to approve the resolution and sign adoption of the plan.
Yes, I do.
I would make a motion to approve the mitigation plan and Lincoln resolution for Burleigh County Emergency Management.
I'll second the motion.
So we have a first by Councilman Bjornstad, second by Councilwoman Artavia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and so moved, and we'll get a roll call.
Davis,
Yes.
Artavia,
Yes.
and Bjornstad.
Yes.
All right, and I will sign this for the 6th day of November 2025. And forward that on. I will have to sign the copy for the auditor and forward this on to emergency management. Thank you. And now. Thank you.
Madam Mayor and council members, the engineering report for the month of October is before you, or at least was included in your packet. I'm just going to try and go through this pretty quick. We met on the 2nd of October for Waterworth data planning session, and a development meeting was had for the property at 736 Lincoln Road. October 3rd, there was a meeting regarding the Ridge 4th edition. And Matt Scheibel with SVH was in attendance for that meeting in my place. We had another meeting on the 9th of October with Waterworth. And the city council meeting was held that day. The 20th was an MPO TAC committee meeting, and I misspoke. Matt Scheibel with our office was at that meeting for the Ridge Development. I did attend the one on the 3rd. October 23rd held another city council meeting, and October 28th was a meeting regarding an update to the comprehensive plan, along with planning and zoning and board of adjustment. Going forward, we have a number of items under development ongoing. We went through annexation tonight with Turkey Meadows. We have sketch plat coming forward, which will also look at zoning changes. They're looking at calling that addition Kearney Point Addition. In addition to that, Ridge Fourth will be moving forward as a preliminary plat, and will have zoning changes as well. We are waiting for the submittal of payment for Kearney Point Addition, which will then start off or kick off a schedule of a pre-application meeting. And we do have sketch plat items, but again, we're waiting a payment on that one. Preliminary plat for the Ridge Fourth Edition is in progress, and at the next council meeting, November 20th, the final plat for Ridge Third Edition will be heard. We have 2425 Maple Lane in process as a residential development application, and I believe that's the first application to come in the Ridge development, so that's pretty exciting to see come forward. We've got a couple accessory building applications that have been submitted to county for review. A special use permit for daycare at 4110 Humboldt Circle has moved forward by the October Board of Adjustment. They also have a commercial county building permit and a site permit for Lincoln that's been submitted to county for review. Utility plans, under this item, I included our meetings with Waterworth, but also that at this point, we have submitted to them our paver information for the roadways, the plug in along with the sanitary sewer rate study information. So the hope is that our next meeting will really have a pretty solid wealth of knowledge from all these different aspects. They already had water information put into that system, and it'll be interesting to see how the rates, what that looks like for having all these other items included in their software, which is what it's made to do. Another item is residential concerns. Beginning of the month, there's quite a few questions about just what we've been talking about: parking pads, boulevards, sidewalks. Later this month, I had some concerns about the lack of gravel in newly developed areas on those roadways, and so there's a little bit of discussion about how that process works and when they get gravel versus when development starts. Other items just to add is we've talked about capital improvement projects. We're really trying to button those down and come up with a definite list, which would give us the good start to a capital improvement program, help us budget out what projects we want to do, what maintenance we want to do, and how to plan ahead. As part of that, we're asked to include projects with 2025 Burley County multi-hazard mitigation plan. So we're coordinating our projects with them as well. And as Madam Mayor mentioned, it's kind of a living document, those items. So as things come up in the community, we'll be able to reach out to them and include that in this document as well. Working towards comprehensive plan update. It was the first meeting that I had about, right before the planning and zoning meeting, we met for over an hour. And I was pleasantly surprised to see how much work had been done. I think I expected to come in and that we'd be starting from scratch on the update, which update is a whole different item than starting from scratch with a comp plan, but we have a game plan of how to move forward to stay on schedule with getting these updates done by the end of the year. So that's our hope. One other item that is new, Ashley and I are working through application that we received for mobile homes moving in and how to move forward with the process of mobile homes that aren't necessarily new structures, but they'll be moved to a new location. So coming up with what's the right way to move forward. I think the moving permit itself, as far as traveling to get here, is pretty good. But what do we need to look at once they get here? What do we need to approve about how they're put on site, utility connections? Unlike a new structure that would probably have documentation about how the structure is constructed, we don't really have that. So we're going with pictures and as much information as we can. And we'll be reaching out to the county and some other entities to make sure that we have all our bases covered. So hopefully we get that process buttoned down because as I've been warned, there's a lot of open spaces that are already filled. So we'll be pretty good at it by the time we're done. Ashley will be a pro and she's gonna tell me how to do this. That was a lot to throw on you and I tried to talk fast. So if there's any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer those. So.
Not at this time, but I appreciate it, Loretta. Thank you.
Okay, again, if you think of something, reach out. I'm happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
As well, so I have not made any progress since the last meeting on the pension issue. I hope to have that for the next meeting. I think the mayor forwarded to me an email I think that all of you received concerning one of the petitions for exclusion. It was interesting because when I got the mayor's email, I was on the phone with Scott Solon, who's now the attorney representing one of the petitioners for the exclusion issue. So in visiting with him, the statute that governs exclusion of territory that's already been annexed into the city. It has two requirements that have to be met before the petition is valid. One of those requirements is that the land cannot be platted. And the other requirement is that the land is not receiving or adjacent to city services. So if either of those are true, then the law does not authorize exclusion. So.
You said the second one was what, Monty? I'm so sorry.
The property is receiving or is adjacent to city services. And I'm not sure what adjacent means, but so what I told Mr. Solomon is that I would investigate the city services component and that he should investigate the annexation component, because my guess is this property was all annexed or not platted. It was all platted at some point, and he has some of that documentation. If the property has been platted, then to properly ask for exclusion, the landowner has to go in and vacate the plat, or at least vacate the public, as I understand it, and the law is not 100% clear, but vacate the public dedications in the plat. And technically that has to be done before the petition can be considered. And if you recall, when these petitions were first presented to the council, there was a representative of Burley County who came and said, look, we aren't going to be in favor of vacating the public right of ways in the roads that are there, right? So that's kind of a big impediment. And so what I told Mr. Solom is that ultimately the question of whether or not either of these petitions should be granted is probably going to be a political question. Assuming that if they're receiving city benefits, city services, then I don't think there's a path forward, but I don't think that either of these properties are receiving, as the law defines them. We've got to verify that. And then either of these are probably not eligible to be excluded from the city unless the plats are vacated, and the plats probably cannot be vacated unless the council agrees to vacate the plat. So the way that I'm analyzing this and what I told Mr. Solomon is that if there's a political will in the council to get to exclusion, to have this property de-annexed from the city, then the lawyers can probably figure out how to get there with the vacating the plat and everything else, right? If there's not a political will for that, then there's really no remedy, right? If the council is not willing to go from the beginning all the way to de-annexation, there's really no remedy, there's no appeal, there's anything like that. So the decision ultimately is probably going to rest with the council. And what I don't want to do is, and I said this when it came up, and I told Mr. Solomon, is I don't want to have a whole bunch of procedural roadblocks that cause these petitioners to spend a whole bunch of money on attorney's fees and jump through a whole bunch of hoops. And so what I would like to do is have Mr. Solomon do his due diligence on what vacating the plats would mean. Like what would have to be done? What are the ramifications? What would Burley County or Apple Creek Township or whoever, what would they think about that? How is it going to affect roads? So we understand what the effect of that would be. And that we will investigate the city services component. And then maybe what it makes sense is they either have a special meeting with Mr. Solon and his client to have this discussion about this issue and have kind of, not necessarily a vote, but just the council to express kind of where they're coming down on this issue, right? Because if there's no political will to move forward, then I think that we would like to tell the landowner that sooner rather than later, because the process of vacating the plat and doing the notices and having the public hearings and all of that, there's some expense associated with that. So I don't know that you can get to a result until you've had the public hearing and it's been properly noticed and everything else. But if, for instance, there's generally, hey, we want to work with you, we want to find a way to get you excluded, if that's the will of the council, then we would proceed one way. If, on the other hand, kind of a preliminary matter, the vacation of the plat and all of this procedure not in the city's interest, or the removal of the property from the city, not in the city's interest, we're generally not in favor of doing this. I'd like to get to that kind of a general position sooner rather than later. So my question to you is, does that make sense to you? Is that okay for me to kind of move this along in that fashion? Ultimately, you will have to decide that. But I think getting there sooner rather than later, if all of you think, yep, we want to do this, that would be good to know as how to move it forward. On the other hand, if there isn't support here for that, for exclusion, then that would be good to do as well. And then the other thing is, these two petitions are not aligned as far as the procedure, right? Or at least the history. As I understand it, one of the properties that's seeking exclusion was not brought into the city as part of the last forced annexation. It was done by the then property owner asking the city to bring it in. Right? So that might make a difference too. It doesn't matter legally to the applications or the petitions are the same, but the council might want to treat those differently one was a forced annexation, one was a requested annexation, and I believe somebody bought that property after it had been annexed, and so the equities of those, you might think of them differently. So anyway, that, I wanted to update you on that because I know that you all received an email on this. And I've worked with Mr. Solomon before, and we'll should have something for you at the next meeting as to what the plan is.
Can you explain the roadway situation? So Casey, I remember Casey speaking on it, but what exactly does that mean? So the road that runs out here, what does that mean?
Yeah, so that's something that we need to explore. That's like the question you're asking of what it means to vacate the plat is something that Mr. Solomon and I are going to have to discuss and take a look at the plat. And I don't have a clear answer for you.
Because I remember Casey saying it goes back to its original owners and then they have to purchase it back. It would be highly unlikely that county would do that.
So when a road is vacated, it's not that the owners have to purchase it back. It's just that,
So I thought Burley County had to buy it back. My understanding was, okay, so if they vacate that, whatever this roadway was, goes back to its original owners.
No.
No, okay.
so I think the way that you should think about it is that the public road, well, think about it in a situation where a road is vacated. Your property line doesn't necessarily end where where the road right away starts. It goes to the center of the road. And then the person across the street, their property line kind of goes to the center of the road. And the roadway is dedicated to the public. When that dedicated roadway is vacated, then that land then goes back to private ownership. And sorting that out is all part of like what happens when you vacate a plat. So there are procedures for vacating roadways and alleyways and other things where then or section line roads, right? Where then that property then goes not to the original owner, it goes to whoever owns that adjacent land now. So I wish the law was more clear about this. What I think happened is they amended the statute to preclude, I think that what the statute was meant to say is that if you platted your property as a subdivision into the city, you can't be de-annexed, but what the case law suggests is that there's a way of vacating the plat to get there. There isn't a guide that tells me in the century code what that means, so that's why Mr. Solomon and I have to have a conversation. Like, again, what I'm trying to figure out is how we can do this without spending a lot of money for the city or a lot of money for the petitioner on figuring out how to move forward.
I'd like to.
And just to add to what Monty's saying, to complicate it even more is when you are vacating alleyways, basically public right of way, you really need to do your due diligence to see who else has property in there. So a lot of times before a community can allow something like that to be vacated, an easement to be vacated, you have to get the approval from utility companies, telephone companies, whoever might have something in those areas. So that just adds to the complication of what the attorneys are gonna have to look into if that moves forward.
And then as far, and maybe you can clarify the adjacent properties. So one of these properties butts up to a residential area in a new development that already has homes. So that would also add a layer of difficulty of de-annexing because they already have an adjacent property that has city infrastructure or the city services.
Yeah, and then of course, the other part that makes it more complicated is that if you allow exclusion of a piece of property that is surrounded by the city, then if down the road the city decides it wants to re-annex that property, the property, like you're gonna bring in a single piece. And if you recall the process we went through with the forced annexation, is that you basically the landowners express their objection by square footage that they have of their lots as compared to the entire annexation. If it's above a certain threshold, then the annexation doesn't go forward, you go into mediation, and then if the mediation isn't successful, you go into administrative litigation. And so the downside for the city is that if these petitions are granted and then the city changes their mind, the cost of bringing them back into the city goes up considerably, right? Because now you have to litigate to get them back into the city as compared to the forced annexation process that you just went through. So I mean, I know that's insurmountable, but these are the things that the city that you're going to have to consider to figure out how you want to move forward, and getting to kind of an idea of what you think is in the city's best interest or how you're going to respond to these petitions sooner rather than later is probably, at least informally, probably a good way to go. I mean, ultimately, if the petitions meet the requirements of the statute, you're going to have a public hearing and, go through that process. But that public hearing is supposed to be scheduled by the petitioners, that they're responsible for doing the advertising for that, so we'll have to coordinate with them.
But the complications was due to the complication of having a forced annexation take place in the first place, so would have been better to probably do a lot more of that work on the front end, but none of this council was in place except for, well,
I was,
yeah,
I was the only one.
so.
We just say this, we were involved, the local firm was involved in prior annexations, and my understanding of what part of the strategy was with this new development, and the development agreement was to bring that development in through a forced annexation along with this other property, because the total square footage was large enough that the city could accomplish that without having to have litigation, without the expense, right? So that was discussed by the council before the developers agreement was completed. It was discussed as part of the developers agreement. It was discussed as part of the resolution for annexation. So I understand that some of the property owners were surprised that they were forced annexed in, but it was something that had been publicly discussed by the council as a strategy of a way of avoiding extra litigation costs for the council and for the city. Okay, that's all I have, those two things. I'm sorry that went on a little bit longer than I wanted, but I just want to keep you guys all up to date on kind of how we're trying to manage that, so. No. You don't even. I don't think so.
Okay, any questions for the attorney? Nope. All right, so then we'll continue on. Does anyone have anything on council have anything to share?
I do have one. Rural Fire Department, they're new engine. So it's in the process of getting updated with everything they need. With that, they are going to be selling one of their old fire engines. And so if anybody wants to put a sealed bid in for that, they could potentially own a fire truck.
Fire engine, huh?
Don't ask Miss Fleming. She may want to.
That's all I have.
All right, anyone else?
I was just gonna say tomorrow is deer opening season, so good luck, hunters.
Be safe.
And the City of Lincoln office will be closed on Tuesday for Veterans Day, and we would like to give great thanks and respect to all of our veterans, including our very own mayor. Thank you.
So I'm up here for Landis. I talked to him earlier and he said that I could come up and talk about this because he was gonna miss. The only things that I really gotta talk about were, and I'm gonna make this as short as I possibly can. I think he emailed you all about the light heads And so with the light heads that we have, I got pricing on the light heads and everything, and then I got, prices on the poles that we need to have for our capital electric contract and everything. I gotta have so many light heads on hand. In the process of getting all the pricing and everything like that, I talked to, Fetzer Electric, and he has some light heads that we could purchase for half of the price of what a light head costs that we currently have up. So, they're just a little bit different than some of them that we have up. But they generally look like if you were to go down on the west side of Lincoln, down on like Riley Road, they basically look like those. They're just narrower than what's up on like Dolan or Armstrong, stuff like that. So a normal light head is $850 for one. He has these other ones for about $400 he'd sell us some for. So I was just kind of wanting to see your guys' thoughts on if we could go ahead and kind of purchase at least one of them to get it up, because right now we have a light on Armstrong that got struck by lightning and it's been out for a while, and the pole actually has a chunk missing out of it. And I actually talked with Mandan, and they will give us a pole, and then I have to order poles and I have to give one back to them. So if we were to be able to take and get this light head, I could get the pole, get the head, and get Capital Electric out here to replace that. But if you guys want to actually just see what they look like right now, or if you guys got to look at it, I don't know. But at least if we want to just buy one light head, see what it looks like out there, see how it performs, see what it does. That would be great to at least just get one up there.
How
right
many are
now.
required through the contract?
I think it's two. We have to have two heads and two poles on hand at all times.
Do you
So
have two on hand at the moment?
I have 0 on hand right now. So that is kind of why I want to get this one. Get it up there, see what it looks like, so I can know if we want to buy more of these, or if we want to go the other route and see about getting the other ones, but those ones take longer to get.
Director, shoot, I have another question. Will there be, I mean, you said Fetzer was gonna sell these at a much discounted price. So will they be able to continue to get those for us in the future if we need them and at that price?
Not at that price, no. So these light heads he got, there was a different job for a city that he got them for, and then they changed their mind on it, and so he has these ones just sitting there.
How many does he have?
That's a good question. He said a pallet.
Well then, okay.
I don't know how many. I was trying to reach out to him today. I just ran out of time. So, but I am going to give him another call tomorrow.
Council, do you think it would be wise for our director to get two so that we are compliant, we have two just in case, and since they are on a good discounted price? For the heads
You
anymore?
said there's one that needs to be replaced.
Right,
Yes, so we would only have one on hand.
And then we
so
would,
three then,
oh, we don't have the poles yet.
Right,
right, but at least we
Yeah,
have
still
like
looking
well.
Right, but this would give us an opportunity to see what it looks like. And if it would do what it's supposed to do as far as safety wise, then even within that week or two or whatever to buy more.
So
I think that's
what do you prefer, Director? Do you prefer to purchase one or three at this time?
right now I would just see about buying one right now. See what it does, see how it performs at night, if it puts off enough light for the area.
I was just gonna ask, do you know, is there a difference in like the lumens output?
Well, that's the problem. So on our sheet, basically, this is our current light head. It's just wider than what we currently have. And on it, those are all the different models. And we do not know what models we have because we have no way of reaching up there to actually see. And
So we don't know what.
Spencer Electric does not know what they have, and I've looked at as-bills for up on Armstrong, Dolan, all of them, and it is not listed on anything that we have. So I don't know what model we have, but these ones, like the smallest lumen that they have is like 22,000 lumens. And this one is the one that he has where it's just narrower, so it is not going to put off as much light, but it is still, for this model, it will put off 19,087 lumens. So it is not a significant drop, but it is some.
Is there anything in our ordinances regarding the development and when streetlights are put in place that we have a minimum?
An as-built or an as-built? As-built, no, we do not have anything like that. Which we could require that, we would just have to create, or what would it be called, not an as-built, but
That's standard.
yes, like a old standard or something like that, where we could require everybody to buy these ones, or we could require everybody to buy these ones, or a certain pole or anything. So,
I feel like it probably would be a bad idea to have some kind of like minimum standards for that.
right, and that's kind of where I'm at, like, so, like this light head is down on the west side of town. It's down on Riley and 28th and all the way down in there. It's not on Dolan. I don't know why. Well, that's two different developers, so they each picked what they wanted.
Sure.
So that's kind of why if we have
And we should
standard, we
totally
could have
standards.
uniformity, but we don't. Everybody just kind of went with what they have, what they wanted, stuff like that. So, I'm pretty sure that the one that he has cheaper will work. It will do just fine for a residential area. Now, like on 28, I don't think it will put off enough there. It's a wider road. It's more industrial area. We'll probably need a bigger light at there. So,
I like it dark over there. Just kidding.
so I mean, but for in the residential areas, I think this one will do just fine. But so I'm just kind of wanting to know your guys' opinion, if you guys would let me get one at least, and then at least get the light back up and more.
Let's do it. We have to, yeah.
So,
I'm good with that.
okay, perfect. And then the other thing I talked to him about was, I brought up to him about, the purchase of the truck. I can find what I did with it. Anyway, so the purchase of the two new trucks. I brought it up to him, just kind of let him know. I'll back it over there.
I printed it out.
Oh, it's like, I don't know, well, I had one, but somewhere, anyways, it's in all my table. So anyways, I reached out, I contacted Nelson Auto Center, and they got me a quote on the two trucks. And it's $97,398, and that is through the North Dakota State Procurement Office. They have the bid.
Two trucks, brand new?
Yes. It was approved in the budget for the two trucks.
Are they F-150, F-350, what are they?
That's each, right?
97,000? No, that's
No,
for
it's for
both.
both.
That is both said and done. They are $48,699 each.
48,000 what, sorry?
$48,699 each. And So in the budget, it was, that, I can't remember which one it was, with water sewer, but one of those had, $30,000 for one truck, and then the other one had 32,000 for another one,
Miles?
dollars.
Dollars
Put
for,
aside for the two trucks.
got you.
And then I was saving, money from water and sewer, that I was gonna have 20,000 from sewer and $18,000 from water left over from this year, put towards them. And when you add that all together, I got it's about $100,000. And then I did my diligence on looking up on how much the other trucks would cost, because I would be selling two of the trucks that we have, which would be the white GMC, which is roughly around $3,000 on Kelly Blue Book. And then the gray Chevy is a 2013, so that one's looking around roughly $10,000. Say we'll get that, that's another story. But that's kind of what they say they're worth on there.
How many
So-
miles are or how many miles are on the two new trucks?
They'll show up with like maybe 100, whatever, 200 miles, whatever it is from Minnesota to here. Guess I'm not even sure how far that is.
Probably more than 100 miles. We get-
300, well, 4, we'll go with 5. How about that?
I will say, we just got this information earlier today, so we didn't have a lot of time to look into it, but I did do some quick checking. I've done a lot of purchasing on vehicles in the past for our business and family members. I did some checking, and the closest pickup I could find in comparison to what was on the bid that you got. The cheapest I found within a 500-mile radius of Bismarck was $3,000 higher than what this pricing was. So the value of these pickups that you found, the value is definitely higher. But it is a big deal for these streets.
I would say go ahead and purchase those trucks. And then put the other ones up and see what we get for them. We had to bid them out, do we? Or what's that process again? I'm sorry.
Not since it's part of that procurement thing, I thought, right?
I do have to get approval from the council to put those up for bid. Being said it's over a certain bid amount. And then I don't know if the attorney Rocky we got, it's we could put them on other sites as well. I know we were talking about putting them up on the other sites as well, being they are such a high dollar amount, people don't want to pay that
Right.
12% fee on top of that, so that restricts people from wanting to do that. If we put it out, maybe like the police chief did with closed bids, so and put them on Bisman or Facebook also. But I know we have to put them out for a certain time for advertising, and then we can put them on. So
I would say you have the go ahead. Council, are you okay with him?
that's okay.
As soon as those trucks come, then switch it to.
Right, so I won't be selling any vehicles until next year, because these ones, I can order them now, they won't be here till next year. So these have to get built and sent to us, so they will be next year when we receive them. So it will probably be next year, and I'll probably come up to her just say, hey, I'm gonna sell these vehicles, just a reminder, so.
Perfect.
But yeah, so that is all I have.
Thank you.
Guess if I get a motion.
For this truck?
So the,
Make them. Go ahead.
I say I'd make a motion to approve the purchase of these two vehicles.
We have a first by Councilman Bearstead,
I'll second that motion.
second by Councilman Davis, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And if we could get the roll call please.
Thank you.
Bearstead,
Yes.
Arcadia,
Yes.
Yes.
all right, in your packets. We have the administrative or policy analyst position. I'll just ask you to take that with you, take a look. One of the things that was brought to my attention is maybe having that administrative part in the title.
maybe not the best because that might. Because we already have administrative staff, so if you could come up with at the next meeting, maybe an idea of what this position would be. According to what Kevin that will work.
Okay,
If you could take a look at that, so we can get that posted, and then. The second sheet is actually an idea of what that posting could look like, after we come through with everything. And let's. Okay, so I received an email from Lincoln Events Committee. They. Remember, we had last year done the photos with Santa as a council. They would like to participate in that. And so then in the emails back and forth, is this something that council would like to fall under Lincoln Events Committee? Because then it doesn't matter who at this table. Who is here at this table, it would continue on, 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
City of Santa.
Yeah, so what do you think about that to have continue on with our city? We could still as a council participate in it, but then have it fall under Lincoln Events and make it bigger and bigger every year.
I think there's a will for it with the citizens. I think there was a really good turnout last year that people would like that. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't care.
All right, so I will let them know that yes, that would be appreciated for them to take that over, and we will be participants in whatever they do permits.
Perfect.
So, auditors report.
I just have one thing. Saturday will be November 8th. We have those 3 CDs coming due. I did put a couple rate sheets in your packet. And then so right now they're at Dakota Community Bank. There's 3 of them. They're all 6 months. And I just want to make sure that we could reinvest them for 6 months. And I negotiated the rate with her. The board rate was 3.63 APY with an interest rate of 3.60. And if you look at Hometown Credit Union was running a 6-month special at 3.86 API and 3.8% rate. And so I negotiated with her and she came back that they'll do the 3.90 and the 3.94 for the annual percentage yield. So I need to know if you guys are okay doing another 6 months or.
I would say yes to another 6 months, yeah, for sure. Yeah. See how it goes, see what happens.
Can I get a motion to roll them over come on Monday?
I'd like to make a motion to roll over the CDs on Monday.
We have
And
interest.
continue.
Well, first by Councilwoman Artelvia,
I'll second that motion.
second by Councilman Davis, all in favor?
Aye.
Do the roll call, please.
Turn
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Artavia.
Yes.
And then I'm just gonna mention one more thing with that. The Fed had met last week and again, they lowered the rates by a quarter. So I did negotiate today. She just came forward. Our checking account rate would have dropped to 1.75 and she's gonna hold it at 2%.
That's right.
Thank you.
The one last item I had, and I don't know, engineer, if you ever. My understanding is we got some flex transport money. We got 73,608.44 at the end of August. We got $1,788.14 in September. And then just as of 10/21 and 25, we received $1,951.39. It is its own line in the highway fund because again, it's kind of like the prairie dog funds. You can only spend it on certain projects, which my understanding is that maybe Does it have to be for new roadways or fixing, I have to find the description and I'll get that to you guys of exactly what this money could be spent on.
Perfect.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
oh, total amount equals 77,347.97.
Sean.
Amen. And that's all I have.
Right, well. Seeing no other, we will call this meeting adjourned at 8:53.